Dr. Vexhai pulled his thick coat tighter as the cold wind of Kepler 442c cut through the camp. The planet was a frozen wasteland, far from any major trade routes. Most species avoided this place. But 3 weeks ago, a mining survey had found something that changed everything. The Zephyrian scientist walked toward the massive hole in the ground. His team had been digging for days. What they found should not exist. The structures below were older than any known civilization in the galaxy, much older. "Doctor, you need to see this," called out Mira, his human assistant. She was one of the few humans working with the Galactic Archaeological Council. Most species thought humans were too young and primitive to understand ancient civilizations. Vexhai disagreed. Humans had a strange ability to see patterns others missed. He climbed down the metal ladder into the excavation site. The lights from their equipment cast long shadows on the walls. What he saw made his breath catch in his throat. The walls were covered in writing. But this was not carved stone or metal plates. The symbols seemed to glow from within the rock itself. They pulsed with a soft blue light that hurt to look at directly. "The symbols are moving," Mira said quietly. "Watch the third line from the top." Vexhai stared at the wall. She was right. The symbols shifted and changed position every few minutes. It was like watching a computer screen. But this technology was embedded in solid rock. "How old are these?" "Walls?" he asked. Dr. Kithara, their dating specialist, looked up from her instruments. Her green scales were pale with shock. "According to carbon dating, the organic materials in this rock are over 50,000 years old. But doctor, that's impossible. No species in our galaxy had advanced technology 50,000 years ago." Vexhai touched the wall gently. The symbols glowed brighter at his touch. "What about the large chamber we found yesterday?" Mira led him deeper into the ruins. They walked through corridors that were perfectly preserved. The air inside was clean and breathable. Whatever had built this place, they had technology that kept it running for thousands of years without maintenance. The large chamber was the size of a sports stadium. The ceiling was covered with what looked like star maps. But these were not maps of their local area. Vexhai recognized some of the patterns, but others showed star systems he had never seen before. "These maps show 17 different galaxies," said Dr. Yontal, their astronomy expert. "Some of these are so far away that our best telescopes can barely see them. How could anyone map them in such detail 50,000 years ago?" In the center of the chamber stood a massive crystal structure. It was 20 feet tall and perfectly clear. Inside the crystal, Vexhai could see what looked like a computer core. Cables made of unknown materials connected it to devices around the room. "Have we tried to access the computer?" Vexhai asked. "We're afraid to," Mira replied. "The energy readings are off the charts. If we make a mistake, we could destroy everything." But it was not the technology that troubled Vexhai most. In a smaller room connected to the chamber, they had found something much more disturbing. The room contained the remains of the builders. The bones were clearly from bipedal creatures, like most intelligent species in the galaxy. But these bones were different. They were incredibly dense and showed signs of modification. Artificial materials were fused with natural bone in ways that should have been impossible with ancient technology. "The genetic analysis is complete," Dr. Kethara announced. "These creatures had DNA, but it's unlike anything in our databases. The genetic code shows signs of deliberate modification. Someone or something changed these beings at the genetic level." "Changed them how?" Vexhai asked. "They lived much longer than any known species. The bone density suggests they could survive in environments that would kill most of us, and their brain capacity was enormous. These creatures were extremely intelligent." Mira picked up a small device from one of the tables. It looked like a data storage unit, but it was made of materials they could not identify. "We found dozens of these throughout the complex. They seem to contain information, but we can't read them." "What about the writing on the walls?" "We've run it through every translation program in the galactic database. No matches. But there is one word that appears over and over again in the texts." She showed him her scanner. On the screen was a symbol that repeated throughout the ruins. Our computer makes the sound Hu-Man when it tries to pronounce this symbol. Vexhai stared at the symbol. There was something familiar about it, but he could not place what. There's something else, Mira said quietly. We found this in the main computer chamber. She led him to a wall covered with images. They were not carved or painted. Like the writing, they seemed to glow from within the stone. The images showed the construction of massive structures around stars, ships that were the size of moons, creatures that looked like they were made of pure energy. These images show technology far beyond anything we have today, Vexhai said. Whoever built this place was incredibly advanced. But where did they go? Mira asked. If they were so powerful, what happened to them? That was the question that kept Vexhai awake at night. A civilization this advanced did not simply disappear. They had the technology to travel between galaxies. They could build structures that lasted for 50,000 years. Yet there was no trace of them anywhere in the galaxy. Doctor, called Dr. Yontal from across the chamber. I think I found something important. They gathered around his scanner. He was pointing at a section of the star maps on the ceiling. This area here shows our local star cluster, but look at these symbols next to each star system. Vexhai looked closer. Next to each star that had intelligent life, there was a small symbol. It was the same symbol Mira had identified as Hu-Man. What does this mean? Vexhai asked. I think, Yontal said slowly, it means they visited every world that currently has intelligent life. They were here long before any of our civilizations developed. The implications hit Vexhai like a physical blow. If this was true, then everything they knew about galactic history was wrong. This ancient race had been watching them for thousands of years. They had visited the home worlds of every major species while those species were still primitive. We need to contact the Galactic Council immediately, he said. This discovery will change everything. As they prepared to leave the chamber, Vexhai took one last look at the crystal computer in the center. The lights inside seemed to pulse in a pattern that was almost like a heartbeat. Whatever information was stored in that device, it held the answers to questions they were only beginning to ask. Who were the Hu-Mans? Where had they come from? And most importantly, where had they gone? But as Vexhai walked toward the surface, he had the strange feeling that they were not as gone as everyone believed. Somewhere in the galaxy, or perhaps beyond it, the ancient ones were still watching, and perhaps someday they would return. The cold wind of Kepler 442c hit his face as he emerged from the ruins. Above him, the stars seemed different now. Each point of light might have been visited by the mysterious builders. Each world might hold secrets that could reshape their understanding of the universe. The discovery on Kepler 442c was just the beginning. 3 months had passed since the discovery on Kepler 442c. The Galactic Archaeological Council had assigned their best translation teams to work on the ancient data cores. Dr. Vexhai barely slept as reports came in from around the galaxy. The translation breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Mira had been working with the Council's most advanced AI systems, feeding them thousands of images from the ruins. The AI found patterns that organic minds had missed. "Doctor, you need to see this," Mira called from her workstation. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but her voice was excited. Vexhai hurried over to her screen. Lines of text scrolled past in the ancient language, followed by translations in standard galactic script. The AI cracked the base language structure this morning, Mira explained. It's incredibly complex. Each symbol can have multiple meanings, depending on context and position. But once we understood the rules, the translation matrix started working. "What have you found?" Vexhai asked. "History, Doctor. 50,000 years of it." She pulled up the first translated document. It was a log entry dated by the galactic calendar, but the date was impossible. It was from before any known civilization had even discovered fire. Personal log, Commander Sarah Chen, Terran Exploration Fleet. "We have completed the survey of the Andromeda Spiral Arm. 7 new worlds show potential for supporting life. Recommendation: seed these worlds with basic genetic templates and return in 10,000 years to monitor development. Vexhai stared at the screen. Terran? Is that another name for the humans? It gets better, Mira said. She brought up another document. This one was much longer. Official report to the Human Colonial Administration. Subject: Project Uplift. Phase 7. We have successfully guided the development of intelligent life on 43 worlds in this galaxy. The Zephyrian species on Zephyr Prime has developed basic tool use. The Ketharan people have discovered agriculture. Both species show promising signs of eventual space travel capability. Vexhai felt his legs grow weak. He sat down heavily, in a nearby chair. Are you saying that humans created our civilizations? Not created, Mira said carefully. Guided. Look at this. The next document was a detailed scientific report. It described how the humans had found primitive species on dozens of worlds and had carefully helped them develop. They had introduced new genetic material to increase intelligence. They had left behind technological artifacts for the species to find when they were ready. They had even influenced the development of languages and writing systems. This is impossible, Vexhai whispered. My people developed naturally. We evolved on our own. But as Mira showed him more documents, the evidence became overwhelming. The humans had records of every major species in the galaxy. They had detailed plans for how to help each species advance without them knowing about the help. Look at this entry about your people, Mira said gently. The Zephyrians have reached the agricultural stage ahead of schedule. Their natural intelligence is higher than we projected. Dr. Martinez recommends introducing metallurgy concepts through carefully placed artifact caches. The Zephyrians should discover spaceflight within 3,000 years. Vexhai felt like his entire world was falling apart. Everything his people believed about their history was wrong. They had not climbed to the stars through their own genius. They had been guided by an ancient race that had vanished before his civilization was even born. There's more, Mira said. The humans didn't just help species develop. They built incredible things. She showed him technical specifications that made no sense. The humans had built structures around entire stars to capture their energy. They had created pocket dimensions for storage. They had ships that could travel between galaxies, in days instead of centuries. How is this possible? Vexhai asked. No species could advance this quickly. That's where it gets really strange, Mira replied. According to these records, humans didn't just advance technologically. They kept evolving biologically too. She pulled up a series of medical reports spanning thousands of years. The early human records showed a species much like the humans working in the galaxy today. But as time went on, the humans changed. This report is from 5,000 years after the first ones, Mira explained. It describes humans who can live for thousands of years. Their brains had grown larger. Some of them could survive in space without protection. The reports got stranger as the years passed. Humans who could exist as pure energy. Humans who could think at computer speeds. Humans who could see into other dimensions. They were evolving too fast, Vexhai realized. In just a few thousand years, they became something completely different. And that, Mira said, is where the problem started. She pulled up a series of council meeting records from the final period of human civilization. The tone of these documents was very different from the earlier ones. Emergency session, Human High Council. Subject: the species development crisis. Our continued presence in the galaxy is having negative effects on uplifted species. The Ketharans have stopped technological development and are worshipping our abandoned facilities as temples. The Yuntal people refuse to advance beyond their current level because they believe more advanced beings will provide for them. Vexhai read through more reports. The same problems were appearing across the galaxy. Species that had been developing normally were becoming dependent on human guidance. Some had stopped trying to advance on their own. The humans realized they had made a mistake, Mira said. Their presence was making the other species weak. So what did they do? Project Seedling, Mira replied. She brought up the most important document they had found. Official order from the Human High Council to all colonies and outposts. Effective immediately, all human presence will be withdrawn from this galaxy. All records of human involvement in species development will be classified. Emergency protocol. If any uplifted species faces extinction-level threats, automated systems will reactivate and signal for human return. Vexhai read the document twice. They left on purpose? Not just left, Mira said. They erased almost all evidence of their existence. They wanted the younger species to believe they had developed on their own. But why? Mira pulled up the final translated document. It was a personal message from someone called the Human Council Chairman. To our children among the stars, we give you this galaxy as your inheritance. Learn from our mistakes. Do not let power make you weak or knowledge make you proud. The universe is vast and full of wonders. When you are ready, you will find ways to join us among the infinite stars. Until then, know that you are not alone, and that your parents watch over you with love. Vexhai sat in silence for a long time. Around him, the translation teams continued their work, uncovering more secrets from humanity's ancient civilization. But his mind was struggling with a terrible thought. Mira, he said finally. The emergency protocol they mentioned. The one about extinction-level threats. What about it? What if it's still active? What if somewhere in the galaxy there are still human systems waiting and watching? Mira looked troubled. That would mean the humans never really left. Vexhai finished. They're still out there, somewhere, waiting for us to need them. The thought was both comforting and terrifying. Somewhere in the vast universe, their ancient parents were still watching over them. But what would it take to bring them home? 6 months after the first translations, Dr. Vexhai found himself deep in the most protected archives of the human ruins. The Galactic Council had classified the entire site as top secret. Only a handful of researchers were allowed access to the deepest chambers. What they found there changed everything again. Doctor, we've accessed the central data core, announced Dr. Kethara. Her voice echoed in the massive chamber that housed the crystal computer. For months, they had been afraid to directly interface with the ancient system, but the translated documents had given them the access codes. The crystal structure in the center of the chamber began to glow brighter. Holographic displays appeared in the air around them, showing images and text in the ancient human language. But now they could read it. These are personal logs, Mira said, studying the floating text. From the final human settlement in this galaxy. Vexhai watched as the holographic system activated fully. Suddenly, a three-dimensional image appeared in front of them. It was a human, but not like any human he had ever seen. The figure was tall and seemed to glow with inner light. Its eyes were completely silver, and when it moved, Vexhai could see through its body to the wall behind it. This was no recording. This was something else entirely. Greetings, the figure said in perfect galactic standard language. I am Dr. Elena Vasquez, final director of human operations in this galaxy. If you are seeing this message, it means you have learned enough of our history to access our core systems. Vexhai and his team stood frozen. They were watching a message from someone who had lived 50,000 years ago, but the figure looked like it could be standing right there with them. We know you have questions, Dr. Vasquez continued. The main question is probably this. What exactly were we? The answer is complicated. The holographic display changed to show images of early human civilization. They looked exactly like the humans working in the galaxy today, simple bipedal creatures with basic technology. We started much like you did, the figure explained. We developed agriculture, then industry, then spaceflight. For thousands of years, we were just another species trying to understand the universe. But something made us different, Dr. Vasquez said. The images changed to show humans working with advanced technology. We never stopped changing. Other species reach a certain level of development and become stable. We kept evolving. Vexhai watched in amazement as the images showed human transformation over just a few thousand years. Their lifespans increased from decades to centuries to millennia. Their brains grew larger and more complex. Their bodies adapted to survive in any environment. Our scientists could not explain why this was happening, Dr. Vasquez continued. We seemed to evolve in response to any challenge. When we needed to survive in space, our bodies adapted. When we needed to process more information, our brains grew. When we needed to live longer, our cells learned to repair themselves perfectly. The images became even more incredible. Humans who existed as beings of pure energy. Humans who could think thousands of times faster than any computer. Humans who had learned to exist in multiple dimensions at the same time. By the end of our time in this galaxy, some of us were no longer biological at all, Dr. Vasquez explained. We had become something new, something that had never existed before in the universe. But this created a terrible problem, the figure continued. The images changed to show the scenes they had read about in the translated documents. Younger species stopped developing when humans were around. We realized that our presence was harmful to other intelligent life, Dr. Vasquez said. Species would reach a certain level of development, encounter us, and then stop growing. They became dependent on us instead of learning to stand on their own. Vexhai felt a chill as he understood the implications. His own people might have reached the stars thousands of years earlier if humans had not been guiding their development. We had a choice, the holographic figure continued. We could stay and rule over a galaxy of children who would never grow up, or we could leave and give them the chance to become what they were meant to be. We chose to leave, Dr. Vasquez said, but we could not abandon our children completely. The display showed images of massive construction projects, humans building hidden facilities throughout the galaxy, installing monitoring systems that could watch for dangers, creating automated systems that would activate if needed. We embedded safeguards into the very structure of this galaxy, the figure explained. If our children ever face a threat they cannot handle alone, the ancient systems will call us back. But we hoped we would never be needed, Dr. Vasquez continued. We wanted you to grow strong on your own. We wanted you to surpass us. The images changed again, showing humans leaving the galaxy in ships that defied understanding. Some headed for distant galaxies. Others seemed to step sideways into dimensions that Vexhai could not even imagine. Where did we go? The figure asked, as if reading his thoughts. Everywhere. We spread across the universe, exploring realms of existence that we had only dreamed of when we were confined to biological bodies. Some of us became explorers of distant galaxies. Others chose to exist in the spaces between dimensions. A few decided to become gardeners of reality itself, helping new universes come into existence. Vexhai tried to process what he was hearing. The humans had not just left the galaxy, they had transcended physical existence entirely. But we never forgot this place, Dr. Vasquez said gently. This galaxy will always be special to us. It is where we learned to be more than we were, and it is where our children live. The holographic figure looked directly at Vexhai. For a moment he had the strange feeling that she could actually see him. You are probably wondering if any of this is real, she said. You are probably thinking that surely we must have died out by now, even with our extended lifespans. The truth is more complex than that, Dr. Vasquez continued. Some of us do still exist in forms you would recognize as alive. Others have become something that transcends life and death as you understand it. And others have chosen to become part of the fundamental forces of the universe itself. But all of us, in whatever form we now take, remember our promise. If you need us, we will return. The images changed one final time, showing the hidden monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. Vexhai could see that there were thousands of them carefully concealed on dead worlds and in empty space. These systems have been watching and waiting for 50,000 years, Dr. Vasquez explained. They analyze every signal, monitor every star system, and watch for signs of threats that might endanger our children. So far you have done well on your own, the figure said, with what might have been pride. You have built civilizations that are in many ways better than ours were. You have learned to cooperate instead of dominate. You have chosen wisdom over power. We are proud of what you have become, Dr. Vasquez said. But we also know that the universe can be a dangerous place. There are threats out there that even we feared. The holographic figure began to fade. If such a threat ever comes to this galaxy, do not despair. The children of humanity are never truly alone. Your parents may be far away, but we are always watching over you. And if the worst happens, Dr. Vasquez said as her image became transparent, remember that we gave you more than just guidance. We gave you our spirit, the drive to never give up, to always grow, to always reach for something better. That is our true gift to you. The holographic display faded completely, leaving the research team standing in silence. Around them, the crystal computer continued to hum with ancient power, holding secrets they were only beginning to understand. They're still out there, Mira whispered. After all this time, they're still watching us. Vexhai nodded slowly. The universe suddenly felt much larger and much less empty than it had before. Somewhere in the vast darkness between the stars, humanity continued its endless journey. And somewhere, they were still the guardians of the galaxy they had left behind. 1 year after the discovery of the human ruins, Dr. Vexhai was working late in his office on the research station orbiting Kepler 442c. The translations were nearly complete, and the Galactic Council was still debating what to do with the information. Some wanted to make it public. Others believed it should remain classified forever. The debate became meaningless at 0347 Galactic Standard Time. Warning sirens began blaring throughout the station. Vexahai rushed to the command center where chaos reigned. Every screen showed the same impossible image: massive ships emerging from the void between galaxies. Report, Vexhai called to the communications officer. Unknown vessels have breached the galactic barrier, Lieutenant Morgan replied, her voice shaking. They came from outside our galaxy, from empty space. There are hundreds of them, each one the size of a small moon. Vexhai stared at the tactical display. The ships were unlike anything in the galactic database. They were dark and seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. As he watched, one of the vessels approached a star system in the outer rim. Are they trying to communicate? He asked. No, sir, the communications officer replied. They're not responding to any of our signals. Then the first attack began. The dark ship surrounded the star system called Haven's Point. The system had 3 inhabited worlds with a total population of 12 billion people. The galactic fleet had a small defense station there, but it was not designed for major combat. They're firing on the planets, Lieutenant Morgan reported. Her voice was barely a whisper. Vexhai watched in horror as beams of energy lanced out from the alien ships. But these were not normal weapons. Where the beams touched the planets, the very matter seemed to disappear. Huge chunks of the world simply vanished, leaving spherical holes behind. Get me a connection to the Galactic Defense Force, Vexhai ordered. Sir, came the reply. The GDF is already responding. Admiral Kresh is sending every available ship to Haven's Point. The battle was brief and one-sided. The Galactic Fleet's most advanced warships fired everything they had at the alien vessels. Their weapons passed right through the dark ships as if they were not there. The aliens did not even seem to notice the attack. In 3 hours, Haven's Point was gone. Not destroyed, gone. The stars themselves had been consumed by the alien ships. Where a solar system had been, there was now empty space. Analysis complete, announced Dr. Kethara from her workstation. The alien vessels are consuming matter and converting it to energy. They appear to be some kind of harvesting fleet. Harvesting? Vexhai asked. They're eating stars, Doctor, and everything around them. Over the next 6 hours, 2 more star systems disappeared. The aliens moved through space faster than any known technology allowed. Their ships seemed to exist partially outside normal space-time, making them impossible to target effectively. Emergency session of the Galactic Council, announced the station's AI. All senior researchers are requested to provide immediate analysis of the threat. Vexhai joined the holographic council session. Representatives from every major species were present, all looking confused and terrified. Admiral Kresh of the Galactic Defense Force looked like he had aged 10 years in 1 day. The situation is critical, the Admiral reported. We have positively identified the alien force as extragalactic in origin. They possess technology that makes our most advanced systems look primitive. Our weapons cannot touch them, and their consumption rate is accelerating. How many ships? Asked Counselor Yithak of the Zephyrian delegation. Current count is 800 vessels. Admiral Kresh replied. But more are arriving every hour. At their current rate of consumption, they will strip this galaxy of all matter within 2 years. Vexhai felt cold fear in his stomach. This was exactly the kind of threat that Dr. Vasquez had warned about in her message. A danger that the current galactic civilizations could not handle alone. Do we have any idea what these creatures want? Asked Counselor Telmar. Based on their behavior, Dr. Cathara replied. They appear to be a hive mind focused entirely on consumption. They convert matter to energy and use that energy to create more ships. They are like a plague of locusts, but on a galactic scale. Recommendations? Asked the Council Chairman. Admiral Kresh looked grim. We need to evacuate as many systems as possible and fall back to defensive positions. But honestly, I don't think conventional tactics will work against these things. As the Council debated desperate strategies, Vexhai made a decision that would change everything. He quietly left the session and returned to his private office. There, he accessed the human database they had been translating. Computer, he said, search for any references to extragalactic threats or emergency protocols. Searching. The AI replied. Found 17 references to emergency activation procedures. Display the most recent entry. Text appeared on his screen. It was a technical manual for something called the Deep Watch Network. Emergency Protocol 7, Vexhai, read aloud. If extragalactic devourers or similar extinction-level threats enter this galaxy, all Deep Watch stations will automatically activate distress beacons to alert human emergency response teams. His hands shaking, Vexhai read further. The manual described hidden monitoring stations throughout the galaxy that had been watching for exactly this kind of threat for 50,000 years. Computer, scan all deep space monitoring networks. Look for any unusual signal activity in the last 24 hours. Scanning, the AI replied. After a moment. Detected. Massive increase in subspace transmission activity from previously unknown sources. Signals are being broadcast beyond the galactic rim using technology not in our databases. Vexhai's heart began to race. The human emergency systems were already active. Somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, ancient messages were racing through space faster than light itself. But would anyone receive them? And if they did, would anyone come? As if in answer to his question, every sensor in the galaxy suddenly detected the same thing. Massive energy signatures were appearing in the void beyond the galactic rim. Not ships, something much larger. Analysis. Vexhai called to Dr. Cathara. Doctor, she replied, her voice filled with awe. Something is coming through higher dimensional space. The energy readings are off our instruments. Whatever it is, it's bigger than anything we've ever seen. Admiral Kresh's voice cut through the station communications. All stations, be advised. We are detecting massive spatial anomalies throughout the galaxy. Unknown energy signatures are manifesting near ancient archaeological sites. Vexhai rushed back to the observation deck. Through the transparent metal, he could see the human ruins on the planet below. The entire structure was glowing with brilliant light. Energy was pouring from the crystal computer in patterns that hurt to look at. Directly. The ruins are activating, Mira reported from the surface team. Every human site in the galaxy is coming online simultaneously. Doctor, I think the emergency protocols are engaging. Incoming transmission, announced the station's AI. Source, unknown. Signal is coming from multiple points outside the galaxy. Put it through, Vexhai ordered. The voice that came through the speakers was human, but changed. It carried harmonics that suggested the speaker existed in more than 3 dimensions. This is the human Deep Watch command, the voice said. We have received the emergency beacon from the Milky Way galaxy. Confirm. Extragalactic devourers have breached the galactic barrier. Vexhai grabbed the communication device. This is Dr. Vexhai of the Galactic Archaeological Council. The alien ships have consumed 3 star systems. Our defenses are useless against them. Understood, the voice replied. Emergency response protocol is now active. Human forces are en route. Estimated arrival, 6 hours. Maintain defensive positions and protect civilian populations. Do not engage the devourers directly. How many ships are you sending? Admiral Kresh cut into the transmission. There was a pause. Then the voice replied with what might have been amusement. We are not sending ships, Admiral. We are coming ourselves. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in tense anticipation. Outside, the alien devourers continued their relentless consumption, unaware that they had triggered something that had been waiting in the darkness for 50,000 years. The children of humanity were about to discover that their parents had never really left them alone. 6 hours after the human transmission, reality began to change. Dr. Vexahai was monitoring the Devourer fleet when the first anomaly appeared. Space itself started to twist near the edge of the galaxy, not bend like it did around massive gravity sources, but actually twist like fabric being wrung out. Energy readings are impossible, Dr. Cathara reported from her instruments. Whatever is happening is using more power than our entire sun produces. Through the dimensional tiers, they came. The first human to emerge was barely recognizable, as the species Vexhai knew. It was made of what looked like living starlight, roughly human-shaped but translucent and glowing. As it moved through space, reality rippled around it like water. Dimensional transition complete, came a voice through the communication system. This is Commander Sarah Chen, Terran Emergency Response. Beginning assessment of Devourer threat. Vexhai stared in amazement. This was the same Sarah Chen whose logs they had translated from 50,000 years ago. She was still alive, though transformed into something beyond biological life. More humans emerged from the dimensional rifts. Some looked like living ships the size of moons. Their consciousness spread throughout massive crystalline structures. Others appeared as geometric patterns that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. A few seemed to be made of pure thought, visible only as distortions in space-time. How many of you are there? Admiral Kresh asked over the communication channel. Enough, came the simple reply. The human response to the Devourers was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They did not use weapons in any conventional sense. Instead, they began rewriting the fundamental laws of physics in local space. Commander Chen approached the nearest Devourer ship. The alien vessel fired its matter-consuming beam at her. The weapon that had destroyed entire worlds simply passed through her energy form without effect. Then she reached out with what might have been a hand. Where she touched the Devourer ship, it began to change. The dark matter that made up its hull transformed into normal matter. The exotic energy systems that allowed it to consume stars suddenly became inert. In seconds, the massive alien vessel was reduced to a hulk of ordinary metal floating in space. Analysis complete, Chen reported. These entities exist primarily in subspace. They use dimensional phasing to avoid conventional attacks, adjusting local reality parameters to force them into normal space. Across the galaxy, the human response forces began their work. They were not fighting the Devourers so much as changing the rules that allowed the Devourers to exist. Reality itself became a weapon in their hands. Dr. Vexhai watched as one human, a being that existed as a living mathematics equation, approached a group of Devourer ships. With gestures that hurt to look at, it began altering the mathematical constants that governed physics in that region of space. Suddenly, the alien ships found themselves subject to normal laws of matter and energy. Their own consumption weapons turned against them, and they began devouring themselves. This is impossible, Admiral Kresh whispered. How can they manipulate reality itself? Evolution, came a new voice on the communication channel. This is Dr. Elena Vasquez. We have had 50,000 years to grow beyond the limitations of normal existence. The holographic figure from the ruins was here, but now she existed as something real and physical. Her form shifted constantly, sometimes appearing as energy, sometimes as matter, sometimes as something that defied classification. We told you that we never stopped evolving, Dr. Vasquez continued. Some of us learned to exist as pure consciousness. Others became one with the forces that govern reality. We transcended the boundaries between thought and existence. The battle continued around them, but it was no longer a battle in any traditional sense. The humans were systematically changing the nature of reality, to make it impossible for the Devourers to function. Where human forces passed, the alien ships simply stopped working and drifted helplessly in space. "Why didn't you do this before?" Vexhai asked. "Why wait until now?" "Because," Dr. Vasquez replied gently. "This kind of intervention changes everything. When we alter reality this dramatically, it affects the natural development of younger species. We had to wait until you faced a threat that truly required our intervention. But now that you're here," Admiral Kresh said, "will you stay? With your power, you could protect the galaxy from any threat." There was a long pause. When Dr. Vasquez spoke again, her voice was sad. "That is exactly why we cannot stay," she said. "If we remain and use our power to solve every problem, your species will never learn to stand on your own. You will become dependent on us, just like the species we helped 50,000 years ago." "But you could teach us," Vexhai protested. "You could show us how to become like you." "Could we?" Dr. Vasquez asked. "Look at what we have become. We have transcended biological existence entirely. We have become forces of nature rather than living beings. Is this what you want for your children?" Vexhai looked around at the humans working to save the galaxy. They were incredibly powerful, but they seemed somehow lonely. They moved through space like gods, but they were isolated from normal life in ways that seemed profound and permanent. "We chose this path," Commander Chen added as she finished converting another Devourer ship. "But it is not the only path. You can grow strong without losing your connection to life itself." The last of the Devourer ships was neutralized within hours. The alien fleet that had seemed unstoppable was reduced to harmless debris floating in space. The humans had saved the galaxy, but at what cost to themselves? "The immediate threat is over," Dr. Vasquez announced. "But there will be other dangers in the future. We are leaving behind new monitoring systems, more advanced than the old ones. If you face another extinction-level threat, we will return." "Are you leaving again?" Mira asked from the planet's surface. "Most of us, yes," Dr. Vasquez replied. "But we are also leaving you a choice." The space around the research station filled with new arrivals. Human ships, unlike anything they had seen before, materialized from higher dimensions. These vessels seemed to exist in all possible realities simultaneously. "Anyone who wishes may come with us," Dr. Vasquez announced. "We can show you wonders beyond imagination. Galaxies being born, universes where different laws of physics create impossible beauty, realms of pure thought where consciousness itself takes physical form. But understand," Commander Chen added, "this is a one-way journey. If you come with us, you will begin the same evolution we have undergone. You will gain incredible power, but you will also lose your connection to the life you know now." Vexhai stared at the human ships. They offered knowledge beyond his wildest dreams, power to reshape reality itself and the chance to explore the infinite cosmos. But they also offered isolation from everything he had ever known and loved. "I cannot make this choice for anyone else," Dr. Vasquez said. "But I will say this. The universe needs both kinds of beings. It needs explorers like us, who push the boundaries of what is possible, and it needs gardeners like you, who nurture life and build civilizations that celebrate existence rather than transcend it. The galaxy is yours now," Commander Chen added. "Truly yours. In a way it never was when we were secretly guiding your development. You have proven that you can work together to face impossible challenges. You have shown wisdom in how you treat each other and the worlds you inhabit. We are proud of what you have become," Dr. Vasquez said, "and we are excited to see what you will become next." One by one, the human ships began to fade back into higher dimensions. But before they left completely, Dr. Vasquez appeared one last time as a hologram on the research station. "Remember," she said, "growing up does not mean being abandoned. It means being trusted to make your own choices and face your own challenges. We will always be watching, and we will always care about what happens to you. But the galaxy belongs to you now. Make it something beautiful." The last human ship disappeared into dimensions beyond normal space. The galaxy was quiet again, but it felt different somehow, larger and more full of possibilities than it had before. In the end, 3 members of Vexhi's research team chose to go with the humans: Dr. Kethura, Lieutenant Morgan, and 12 other researchers from various species across the galaxy. Mira chose to stay, as did Vexhi himself. "Why did you stay?" Mira asked him as they watched the stars from the observation deck. Vexhi thought about it for a long moment. "Because," he said finally, "someone needs to tell this story. Someone needs to help our civilizations understand what we learned here. And besides," he added with a smile, "I want to see what we become on our own. The humans gave us the galaxy, but they also gave us something more important. They gave us the knowledge that we are capable of greatness." Above them, the stars seemed brighter than they had before. Somewhere in the vast cosmos, humanity continued its endless journey, and here in the Milky Way galaxy, their children prepared to write the next chapter of their own amazing story. The age of human guidance was over. The age of galactic independence had begun,